Guys, welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we're going to have a great show of Real Elk Sounds with Chris Roe. Before we get to that, I want to tell you guys I've got a new website, jscottoutdoors.com. It's been revised and it's still a work in progress, but I want to encourage you guys to go over there and check it out. You can actually link to my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my Facebook, as well as subscribe to the podcast on my website. You'll see some blog articles and a bunch of photos and cool stuff, so go check it out. I'm going to be doing a email newsletter, and if you guys want to stay updated on my hunts and adventures and other offers, just go to my website, jscottoutdoors.com, enter your email address at the bottom, and you'll get my personal updates. Also, if you've been a frequent listener of the J. Scott Outdoors podcast, you've probably heard me talk about GoHunt.com and their insider product. Well, now, if you haven't heard and you've been interested but haven't signed up, they're offering a exclusive 30-day free trial offer to my listeners, and you can see why I think it's the best product a Western hunter could have. All you got to do is go to gohunt.com/JScott and sign up for that free 30-day trial. Also, guys, please go on iTunes and leave me an honest review. That really helps our placement with iTunes, and it's fun to watch on the charts how we move up and down those charts, and those honest reviews really play into getting a good placement there on iTunes. So please do that. If you have any questions, like always, you can email me at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. And guys, I want to thank you for all your continued support of my podcast. And I hear from the sponsors all the time how you guys are buying products using the 10% promo code and such. And I just want to thank you for that. Let's get right to this episode of Excited Cow Calling. It's part of the Real Elk Sounds series with Chris Roe. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we've got another great episode with our friend Chris Roe of Roe Hunting Resources here in Real Elk Sounds number 3. Chris, how you doing?
Doing all right. How you been?
Oh, I'm doing great. I actually, this morning, I started at about 8,900 feet and went to 12,025 feet. I thought of you when I got up there. It was just under, it was 11.91 miles. And once I got up there to that over 12,000 feet here in Colorado, I obviously always think of you because you love the Colorado high country, and got back. It was actually a pretty dang good hike, and I felt it. I'm feeling it now, and it feels good to that's a pretty good hump for me. I've been doing mainly between 5 and 10 every day, and this one was definitely a little bit of a butt kicker, so it feels good to get up in the Colorado high country for sure.
Well, and yeah, rub it in. I mean, obviously, I just got back. I'm back home now for a couple weeks, and then taking care of some of the deer stuff that we're doing. But yeah, while you started out at 8,800 feet, I started at 88 degrees. And then literally I was outside working. It was 88 degrees, but the real feel said it felt like 97. I don't know. We had like 80 or 90% humidity. It was stupid. It just sucked. Yeah. I want to get back out there. Well, here's a question for you then. On these hikes, have you started, I know you're carrying your day pack and stuff. Have you actually started carrying serious weight to see how you're doing, or is that coming up next?
No, I mean, I had my backpack today and I probably had 20 pounds in it. But for me, I just do better when I try and go for more endurance and go at a longer distance than trying to pack, 70 pounds on my back on a hike like this. And I know everybody's different, but I'm getting so close to my elk hunt starting, here in a couple weeks. It's like I'm just trying to grind it out. And where I'm elk hunting, I'm not actually backpacking in. I mean, I'll have all my backpacking stuff if we need to camp on a bull or if we need to go in a place. But most of my hunting is going to be day hunting. So for my training, it's basically just been trying to do it, 5 to 10 miles between that a day and trying to gain, a couple thousand feet in elevation. And most of the stuff, I'm starting at a minimum of, 7,000 feet, all the way up to 12,000. And, the elevation for me being a flatlander from Scottsdale is, it's the real butt kicker.
Yeah.
But then, when I can gain, 3,000 foot of elevation, that's pretty sweet too. I definitely could feel. It's amazing when you get to me when you get it's like 12,000 and up. Like my arms, everything feels like almost like I had rode all morning, which I didn't. I didn't fish today, but it's like almost you get that muscle fatigue.
Yeah.
And I don't usually get it till I get to about 12,000, and then it really slows you down.
Well, that's exactly. And it just, there's no gas in the tank.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way now that I live where I live at like 2,000 and change or something like that. So yeah, me coming up, it hurts anymore. And for people that are not used to being out west, I can tell you, at least for me, what I found in the past was it will take you a good solid 2 to 3 weeks, and depending on your fitness level, 2 to 3, 4 weeks to, acclimate and really kind of get yourself acclimated at elevation. But you come down for a couple days, you've pretty much lost it. I mean, you can lose it. So for me, I'm back and forth, bouncing back and forth between Colorado and Kansas as much as possible. But I'm the same way, man. I mean, I recover quickly, so I can carry. Doesn't matter if I'm carrying my day pack or if I've thrown 50, 60, 70 pounds on just to try to see how I do. I'll take a few steps and it just you just tank, just like no energy. But as soon as I stop, take a couple breaths, I notice, boom, I'm right back ready to go, and then I go again. So as long as my recovery is quick, I don't feel too bad about it. But no, that's why I was asking how much you're carrying, because 11-mile round trip, that people don't realize that when you're at that elevation, that's a long way. That's a long way. But
Yeah, and you feel you feel all of it. I've been up here in Colorado since I think May 21st, and this summer I've really focused on diet and really focused on my exercise routine as far as hiking, and I've been rowing like a madman as well. So I mean, in another, I'll be ready for this elk hunt. I don't know how much more I can actually do to be ready. I should be in pretty good fighting shape, and
yeah,
I feel good. My body feels good.
because you're going to be sleeping down below 10,000, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So most of my hunting will be day hunting. Most of my hunts will, my sleeping will be below 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm about fished out.
That's
Got
blasphemy. What?
I know. I'm about fished out and just concentrating on shooting my bow, hiking, and just putting a few last minute touches to my gear, and been doing a lot of call testing, both on the mouth call and the external reeds. And yeah, it's been fun. Just get gearing up for this beaver elk hunt for sure.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. What we're gonna do is like we do in this Real Elk Sounds series, but before we actually get to that, I want to ask you about. I've been noticing on your Instagram, you've been posting some really nice whitetails, and just curious what's going on your cameras, what stage those deer are in, and what are they doing?
Well, yeah, for those people that might not know, I manage it's about 3,000 acres out here in Kansas for whitetails and turkey, and help the landowners just kind of diversify some of their income, and kind of get a control of some of the poaching and trespassing issues that they've had in the past, and then also just try to manage, if not slash mitigate, some of the crop damage issues that they have. So, which is, I mean, as a wildlife biologist, it's a dream come true. You just get to play with critters every day, pretty much. So right now, well, not right now. 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, I went out and really made sure all of our mineral sites were up, ready to go, and in place. I usually start running the minerals in May, in through June. I want to get them out there just so that the critters have all the mineral that they want as they go into summer, from spring into summer, and we got a lot more moisture. They're eating a lot more greener vegetation. The minerals definitely help, not only for antler development, which most hunters care about, but for lactation of the does as well. It's a huge factor. So got all of our mineral sites in, but I don't normally start running the camera until about June, and I'll put the cameras out once I know that they're rocking and rolling, and then I don't usually check them until about now. And so I just got back from Colorado, being out there for a couple weeks filming elk, doing my elk dealio in the summer, and then I got back here and just the other day just ran through, and that's what you're seeing. I ran through and pulled a bunch of camera cards just to see what was in there, and my goodness gracious, we've got some bucks this year. Oh, there's one that is just an absolute stud 8-point, and you look at the deer, you look at his antlers, you're like, oh my gosh, shooter. And then you take a step back and say, okay, get rid of the antler component a minute. What is the deer age class? How old is he? He's only like a 3-year-old deer. This deer's a giant for a 3-year-old. If we can let this deer go for another year or two, let him hit 5 years old, oh my word, is this thing going to be an absolute giant. So and I know your listenership is across the United States and everywhere else, but I know you probably have a bunch that are Western guys. If you have not heard about Quality Deer Management or the Quality Deer Management Association, you may not be privy to some of these discussions. But for a lot of whitetail enthusiasts, the whole industry has shifted now to where you're looking at more body condition and age class and age structure and a diverse age structure. Well, Kansas has never had an issue with mature bucks or big bucks, but depending on the ground and how it's managed and how it's hunted, you can, some things are good and some things are bad. Well, this is now, I think, the third year formally that we've been running the management program, and my gosh, you see the age structure really develop, and you see the antlers really develop, and it's just nice to see and watch. But yeah, we've got some giants running around this summer.
That's always fun to pull the cameras and see some big bucks.
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's funny. One camera I pulled had something like 23 or 2,400 pictures on it already, and so obviously you go there, doe fawn, doe fawn, doe fawn. You hit arrow down, and you're like, click, click, doe, 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 buck. Oh, buck. Oh, it's small, but doe, 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 doe. Hello, and then here's this, giant 10-point standing in front of the camera. You're like, hello, yeah, that'll work.
Do you get it's off the subject, but do you also get turkeys coming by those locations, and do you get a lot of those on camera too, or not?
It depends on where the station is. Like, for instance, there's one camera that actually, if anybody follows me on Instagram, they actually saw some of these pictures earlier this year. I did a little tiny micro food plot inside a little timber corridor, and we had just turkeys and deer piled in on it big time. I also have a mineral site in there. So yeah, we've got the deer piling in on the minerals, but the turkeys still are in the area. So in that particular spot, oh yeah, piles of hens and poults, which was good. I'm glad to see we had different poults, some good poults in the pictures. It was interesting for me that there was actually a couple different age classes. So some of those hens re-nested, and I mean, they probably hatched out chicks or little, turkey poults probably beginning of July, it looks like. I mean, it was really late. But yes, there's some turkeys in there. Other ones are purely in places where it's just going to be deer, and I very rarely, if ever, get any turkey pictures of them.
Interesting. Well, let's play this clip, and we're gonna I'm gonna let you set this clip up before you play it so everybody can hear it live, and then you and I will come back and talk about it and kind of go through it and play it as well.
Okay. So you want me to set it up now? All
Please.
right. Part of what I do, this is kind of what I talk about in the elk module, Roe Hunting Resources, the Elk Institute, is, I monitor and kind of study vocalizations, communication, behavior year round. And so part of what I do is in the summer, going up and keeping tabs on a number of different cow-calf groups and try to get in there and get good video footage of their interactions. Well, one of the places that I go is Rocky Mountain National Park. Every year we try to pull or when I'm going in there to film, I'll pull a permit and go in there and spend some time and see if I can't figure out where cow-calf groups are and figure out if I can get in there and get some good vocalizations and communication. One thing that, and it doesn't matter if you're talking Rocky Mountain National Park, if you're talking Banff, if you're talking Yellowstone, a lot of these places, elk are very habitual, or elk are one of the animals that are easily habituated to human presence. And so you can find them in and around humans, especially if humans keep the predators away. Well, Rocky Mountain National Park is definitely one of those places where you can find some really good cow-calf groups and really good elk groups down in and around people. Now, while the good part about that is you can find them easy, kind of the bad part is you end up, if you can find them and you're next to a road, well, so does 8,300 other people. Everybody just piles in, all right? And so the other flip side of that, the good part about it is when you have human disturbance, whether it's roads, whether it's hikers, whether it's photographers or whatever, when you have a lot of human disturbance and you have a lot of noise, like road noise or whatever, it creates a higher level of disturbance that the elk have to deal with, which means, and I talk about this, see you first, hear you second, smell you third principle, they cannot keep visual contact with one another as easily. And more importantly, they can't hear one another as easily when they're in and around the roads and stuff. So oftentimes, by default, we end up with awesome behavior, body language, cues, or awesome vocalizations. They're talking more and louder than they normally are because they have to deal with everything else that's going around. So sometimes the best places to video and record vocalizations and behavior are right next to the roads. Well, unfortunately, anytime you're going to be stopped looking at elk with a big tripod and a big professional looking camera with a big honking shotgun microphone, everybody drives by and they're like, what is that guy watching? And so everybody just piles in around you and wants to know what you're doing. So this particular clip, all right, you're going to hear some road noise. You're going to hear some people noise. People, the cameras, shutters falling with a camera. You're going to hear vehicles going by. But just try to tune that out and just listen to what the elk are doing. And then the other half of this setup is, and we'll touch on this here in a minute. The cool thing about this is anybody that's a subscriber, you'll be able to see this video. I'm going to be putting this video on the website here pretty quick. You get to see the entire action. What basically these cows come out of the timber, they come into this open little strip along this roadway. They're working their way parallel to a road and they're headed to a huge open meadow. So they come out of the timber, they're walking a little ways, transitioning, and then they're going to go out in this big opening. Well, while they're transitioning, there's probably, and you don't see them in this clip, but there's probably 30 plus animals, all cows and calves, just strung out over probably 200 to 300 yard stretch. So you've got cows separated from their calves, calves separated from their mothers, cows separated from other cows, and quite honestly, there are actually, in this particular clip, some of the elk have made it across the road and are walking parallel to the road on the other side. Well, that means the other animals can't see one another. It was an absolute prime and ready-made situation for vocalizations and a lot of behavioral displays. So that's why when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm staying. I set the camera up, hit record. But the beautiful thing about this whole thing is you get to watch everything unfold and you get the context. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. So that's what's going on. These elk have come out of the timber, are feeding and walking their way parallel to this road on their way to a larger meadow where they're going to feed all night.
Okay, that sets it up perfect. So I'm going to play this audio here for the listeners, and then we'll let it play without stopping it, and then we'll come back on the back end and play it and kind of discuss it. So
Sounds good.
let's hear from our sponsors first before I play the audio, and then we'll go right into the audio, and then Chris and I are going to come back and give some commentary.
Guys, the title sponsor of my podcast is GoHunt.com Insider, and they're doing a 30-day free trial exclusive for the J. Scott Outdoors podcast listeners. Go to GoHunt.com/JScott and click on the blue free trial button and go through the steps. It only takes a couple of minutes. You will be required to provide a credit card, but you will not be charged until after the free 30 days. You can cancel at any time within the first 30 days to prevent being charged. If you have any questions at all, you can email freetrial@gohunt.com and someone from the GoHunt team will promptly respond. This is your opportunity to see what all the buzz is about and the filtering 2.0 system and the application strategies for the Western hunter. I have known the owners of the Outdoorsman's in Phoenix for over 20 years. They are the authority on optics and hunting gear. Outdoorsman's is the leading designer and manufacturer of high-quality tripods, mounting accessories, and pack systems for all hunters. Their customer service is the best in the business. Go to outdoorsmans.com or call 1-800-291-8065 and use the J. Scott promo code to receive 10% off any products.
All right, Chris, that was an unbelievable clip. Let's go ahead and play some of the clip and let you stop it where you want, and then we'll add commentary as to what's going on in the clip.
All right. Perfect. All right, I'm going to stop right there, Matt.
That's an estrus call, Chris.
Exactly. That is exactly why I wanted it. I mean, you got two vocalizations right there that I love. One, people all the time, you'll hear people talk about whether it's estrus mew, estrus scream, estrus whine, estrus whatever. A lot of them will be, it has to, that real raspy, gravelly mew. Well, sorry, folks. I've got so much video footage of that. This is July. She's not an estrus. I'll tell you that right now. So, and again, if you want to call it an estrus mew or whatever, that's fine. Go for it. You can. I'm not going to criticize that. The only reason why I make a distinction is because there are people that feel that that's the only reason why they can use that vocalization in their calling is because, well, it signifies as a cow in estrus. So, if I'm after bulls, if I'm calling to a bull during the rut, well, okay, I can use it. But if I'm a cow elk hunter, well, then it's not going to work for me because, cows don't care about other cows in estrus. Or if I'm late season elk hunting and I'm trying to call, and if I'm calling cows during a late season, well, they're not in estrus, so this isn't going to work. No, it has nothing to do with estrus. It absolutely is a legit vocalization. Use it. Again, we talk about it at length in the elk module, but I mean, you're dealing with an elk that is seeking somebody desperately. So it absolutely has relevancy in your calling scenarios, whether it's whether you, Jay, you're talking about starting your Utah elk hunt early in August, or whether I'm late rifle end of, November somewhere, dude, that vocalization works. I mean, it does. It flat works. It's not one that I, just jump right into. It's more of an aggressive vocalization and more, I'll add those in if I'm getting a little bit more aggressive with my cow calling, but there you go. I mean,
okay, so let me see if I hear you correctly. You are saying that is the sound that many have coined the term estrus call, estrus mew, estrus scream, whatever.
Yes.
You're saying that is the sound, but what you're saying is this is July, and so that is actually a sound that they use all the time.
Yes.
So my question is it an excited call? Is it a demanding call? Is it a,
both.
Or what would you, okay, both. Perfect.
Yeah, no, that you just nailed it. I mean, I talk about it as an extension of a loss mute. If you take that intensity level up, and people talk about it, okay, this is one of those situations. People talk all the time. Oh, add emotion to your calling. Okay, I will always say you're not going to be as effective with your calling if you're just throwing emotion without knowing what you're adding emotion to. But in this case, yeah, this is the penultimate expression of a cow seeking someone. All right. I mean, there it is. And again, this is why I put so much emphasis on video, because you get to watch the body language. You get to see what her head position, her ear position. You can see what she's doing through this entire clip. And that's what, the first 13 seconds of this clip. But you can see clearly she's looking for someone. All right. Yes, it is very exciting. It is very demanding, if you will. There's some people that I talk about a demanding mew versus this. I coined this one more of a selfish mew, just because if you get in a situation where you're in a large herd, and I've got some video footage that's going to go up here pretty quick, where we have about just shy of 60 cows and calves up in the Alpine, and it just turns into chaos. I mean, cows are calling their calves are screaming. Well, a lot of times you will hear this vocalization when a cow is trying to stand out from the rest of the group. And so I originally was like, well, it's not really an estrus. It's more of a selfish type of deal. She's trying to command the attention. She's trying to separate herself out from everybody else that's talking. She's trying to pull the attention to her. She's trying to get those animals to listen to her and do whatever it is that she's saying before it or after it. So I always coined it as a selfish mew. Now, some people would say, well, why wouldn't you say a demanding mew? Well, there's a couple things that cows do that are vocalizations that end up being demanding. So anyway, I mean, there's a lot of discussion around it, but bottom line, yeah, this is absolutely excited. This is absolutely demanding in its nature. Pay attention to me, listen to me, do what I'm telling you to do. And then the other thing that you heard in there is a vocalization I always talk about, is that assembly mew. Short on the high note, long drawn out low note. Man, come to me. In this case, she is either looking for a calf, or she's looking for another cow that's in and around her and somewhere nearby. Now, later on, I can tell you, I think she was separated from her calf and starting to get desperate about it. But doesn't matter. The relevant part about that is here are specific vocalizations that I talk about all the time. And she walks out of the timber, and boom, she just starts firing them. And, well, as you heard with the clip, she just doesn't stop.
And so for people listening, and for myself that try and translate this into our own calling, what would you recommend as far as using this call, and when to use it, and how do you put this into your own calling?
I will use it as a supplemental vocalization. People, you and I have talked about it last year, and I talk about it all the time, is about, whether I do a passive strategy or a targeted strategy. Passive strategy on calling is where I'm not really talking to any elk outside. I'm not talking to elk off in the distance. I'm just portraying the image. I'm just a cow and a calf or whatever in this tight little group, and we're talking amongst ourselves, versus a targeted strategy where I am in fact speaking to elk that are away from me, that I see or I hear or that I'm interested in. It's the same thing that elk do. They will either talk to themselves using chirps and mews, or they will use a targeted vocalization strategy using assembly mews, lost mews, whines, frustrated whines, aggravated whines, that type of deal, which you hear her do through this whole thing. And most of the time I'm going to be using a targeted vocalization strategy, okay? But I always will start low key. I'll start with my lost mews. I will add in those. I'll make vocal contact. I will switch to the assembly mews. I will go that whole thing. Now, if they are not responding the way I want them to, or as fast as I want them to, that's when I start adding in whines, long mews, all sorts of other stuff. And this is one of those vocalizations that I will add in, again, to just say, dang it, pay attention. try to stand out from everybody else and just command that attention. Selfishly say, dang it, listen to me, not the cows that you're with, not not that other bull and his other cow. No, pay attention to me. So I will add it as a supplement when I need to step up the intensity level of my calling sequence because they're not doing what I want them to do as fast as I want them to do it. And only if I need to. Again, I don't elevate my intensity of my calling any more than I absolutely have to.
So you don't just start out just right off the bat with the excited calling and go right into it. Have you found where that can actually work against you?
Well, for me, and you and I have talked about it, and I talk about it on the website quite a bit, is, in some of these heavily hunted areas, whether, again, we talked about it, and I think in a previous episode, I mean, there's all sorts of factors that go into how an elk is going to respond to our calling. Human interaction and hunting pressure, that's only one, aspect. The herd dynamics of the elk that are in that area, that is going to affect it. The age structure of the herd dynamics, that's going to affect it. So there's all sorts of environmental factors and elk-related factors in your area that are going to predetermine how those elk want to engage or interact with one another right off the bat. So I always start low key and work my way up, because sometimes you'll slip into a situation and a low key, that's all they need. And quite honestly, sometimes that's all they want. If they don't respond favorably when I start low, I can always step myself up. But if you jump in aggressive, sometimes you can alter their behavior, put them on edge, make them uneasy, to where now you've altered their behavior. They're going to be either moving away from you, and they may not even know that you're a hunter. They just may not want that engagement with that type of, if you're sounding like a bunch of cows and calves calling, you're an aggressive cow or a very intense cow. There's some times where you get these, you've got a younger age class bull, maybe he's a 4-year-old bull, he's got 4 or 5 cows, and there's really not many bulls around. Man, sometimes those cows are like, you know what? We've got our bull. We don't want to lose him. We're out. We don't want to deal with another aggressive cow. And if you want, we can dive into all that stuff and why that might be the case. But if you dive in aggressive right off the bat,
you got nowhere to go.
You got nowhere to go until you let them settle down. So I always start low, build up if I need to.
Well, and I think you have to judge what you're hearing as the hunter, and with your different strategy. You talk about targeted strategy, you talk about passive strategy. For me, when I hear stuff going crazy and chaos, you got to kind of get into the chaos to have them pay attention to.
Yes.
Although if things are just kind of quiet and they're just kind of talking every once in a while, both bulls and cows, and you go into chaos mode, most of the time that doesn't work in your favor.
Yeah.
Most of the time you've kind of got to go in, take their temperature a little bit and kind of, I don't know. I like to stand out, but I don't like to stand out too much, if that makes sense. Meaning,
yeah,
I don't mind kind of being the cow that's, a little more vocal and, getting after it. But I think there's times when it can kill you too. Because if there's cows that are like, you ain't going over there to her,
yeah,
they go the other way, then the bull is forced with a decision, follow them or come over to me.
Yeah, and which one's he going to choose?
Well, he's probably going to choose the ones that he's been with all day.
There you go. And that's the thing, is people all the time, they'll say, well, he was bugling everything I gave him, but he was just he kept walking away. Yeah. For the guys, and it doesn't matter if we're talking elk or humans, for guys, the more the merrier. If I've got a lady interested in me, hey, let's go. I'm sure my wife won't like that. And so she's like, no, we're leaving. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, people all the time will say, oh, call shy bulls. Well, really? Some of these areas that we're hunting in, and this is not knocking anybody, but some of the places we're hunting in, the vast majority of bulls we're after are 2.5 to 3.5-year-old bulls. Just how educated are they? Whereas the cows that are in that herd might be 15 years old or older. Those ladies have been there. They've done that. They've been around the block a time or two. So when they have their bull, a lot of times I really do believe it's the cows pulling the bulls away. They're like, nope, we do not want to be, and I talk about this, but we don't want to be with other cows because we're going to have to figure out our new pecking order. And then we're just going to take our bull and we're going to leave. The ladies leave. He's bugling, but he's going to stay right with the girls that he's with. He's going to bugle the whole way. And then you're going to be stuck behind him, walking away as you go. Whereas if you just started low key to begin with, you might have been able to tell pretty quick that, oh, wait a minute, those cows don't want any part. No, okay, they don't want any part of me. I haven't moved them yet, but they don't like it. So, okay, stop. Maybe I'll use a bugling or a bull vocalization strategy. Okay, I need to do something else. Whereas, and you've seen it, Jay, on some of the videos, sometimes I get in there and I start calling. I'm not calling to the bull. I look up and I'm like, wait a minute, the cows are interested in my calling. I'm just going to put the wood to them. I'm going to call the cows. I'm going to sucker some of the cows out of the group and anticipate that bull coming out and following those cows and trying to round them back up. So by starting off low key, I can take their temperature just a little bit, see the reaction, and then adjust from there without sending the whole herd off, putting the whole herd on alert.
Great stuff there. Let's take a quick break here.
Real game calls featuring the elk reel. Real Game Calls makes innovative, realistic, and easy-to-master calls using their proprietary, revolutionary design. They are located and manufactured in Gypsum, Colorado. Their calls were designed and battle-tested on some of the hardest hunted terrain on Earth. Check out elkreel.com. Use the promo code JScott and receive a 20% discount on all purchases. Go to www.elkreel.com. Utah Hydrographics is in the water transfer printing service, and they can dip almost anything into a wide range of camo patterns, designs, and colors. Whether it's guns, bows, tools, rifle stocks, vehicle parts, steering wheels, cups, or tripods, Utah Hydrographics loves taking things that are general looking and turn them into something that looks fantastic. Give them a call and see what they can do for you and receive up to a 10% discount by using the JScott16 promo code. Visit them at utahhydrographics.com or on Instagram at Utah Hydrographics.
Chris, I've got one question for you, and it actually doesn't exactly relate to Real Elk Sounds. But for the listeners out there, in your opinion, how do the cows choose the bull that they want to breed them?
Great question, man. Goodness gracious, that was a deep one. And the funny part is we just had a similar question come up on the forums of whether or not a cow chooses the same bull year after year. That one.
And when you say forums, you're talking about the Roe Hunting Resources Elk Module Forum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, that was another good one. So yeah. All right. There is a very, very famous researcher, Valerius Geist, who has published a lot of stuff on elk behavior and communication. He originally theorized, hypothesized, or said, because I've got it in writing here in my book, that cows choose the bulls based on the larger antlers and the larger antlers and the more symmetrical antlers. I disagree with him. And I know that some people might call that blasphemy, but I do. I disagree with him. I think a cow chooses her bull, the bull that she's willing to be with, based on his maturity level or how he handles himself and how he portrays his more maturity level. Meaning, I have seen numerous times where, let's take, for instance, my bull that I killed last year, 341. All right. He was a 341 bull, beautiful, big, mature bull, probably 5-6-year-old bull. All right, across the valley was a group of cows with their bull, and that bull was 5x5 that was probably, I don't know, 270 bull maybe. Okay. Well, why weren't those cows with my bull? My bull had 30 some cows, or 20, 30 some cows with him. Why weren't those cows with my bull? He was clearly much more mature. Well, if you watch a bull's behavior, and I talk about this all the time, lovers versus fighters, the same thing goes. You've got some bulls that are just act stupidly immature. Trying to think what year it was. It's on the YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel. It's called High Country Redemption. I think it's called High Country Redemption. I shoot a 6x6. He's a 3-year-old 6x6. I missed a really big 5x5, nice 4-year-old 5x5 that was in control of about, I don't know, 12, 15 plus cows. I missed him. Blew the whole group out. They left. Some of the cows came back. Well, the cows that came back, here following with them is this 3-year-old 6x6. And I talk about that on the YouTube video and in the module. If you watch him, you can watch him and how he engages those cows. He's chasing the cows around. He's pushing the cows. He's herding the cows. These cows aren't going anywhere. He doesn't have to do anything with them, but he's acting immature. He's pestering them. He's driving them nuts. Some bulls leave the cows alone. Other bulls constantly want to pester. With maturity in bulls, the more mature a bull is, most of the time, they will let those cows do what the cows want to do. They leave the cows alone. So most of the time, a cow is going to go to the more mature animal because they leave her alone. However, it might be a younger age class animal that leaves her alone and still protects the group. And then as far as symmetrical antlers versus asymmetrical, non-typical or whatever, I don't buy that either. I've got plenty of video footage. You've seen it, Jay, down in Arizona especially. You've got some busted up, funky, oddball bull that, he's a big 6 on one side and a squirrely, non-typical club on the other, or he's busted off and he's got no antlers whatsoever, but yet he's still got 30 cows with him. Why? Because he's a 10, 12-year-old bull. So I think they choose it based off of maturity level and how those bulls engage those cows. If the bull leaves them alone and protects them, I think they're happy with him.
So in other words, Mama wants to be with a bull that's going to breed when it's time to breed, but not really mess with her until she says, all right, get over here. It's time.
Bingo. Leave me alone.
And the young guy's going to be constantly sniffing around and jousting them out of their beds and getting them up and getting them down and chasing them and getting up on them and all that. And they're like, to heck with that.
You nailed it. That's exactly it. And literally, Jay, you can watch it happen. You can watch the animal. You can watch those cows just. You just see their frustration level, their aggravation level just build and build and build, and they're like, "All right, we're out of here." And it does not matter what that bull wants to do. She's not going to stay with them. We've got bulls in the Alpine gallery video footage where, just real quick, a large group of cows that had one big herd bull in it ends up having two other just smoking, good looking bulls, probably 5-6-year-old bulls, probably in that 330 340 range, all of a sudden show up. Well, they split the cows 3 ways. The big bull goes over the hill and takes a portion of the cows with him. Meanwhile, the other 2 bulls have sequestered themselves in their little pocket of cows, and they are doing everything they can to bluff, charge, display, scream, bugling, trying to separate themselves and keep their groups apart. Well, the cows literally want nothing to do. They're sitting there, laying there, chewing their cud, watching this whole show going, you guys are idiots. Because literally this goes on for, I don't know, almost an hour. And then finally the cows are like, you know what? It's time to go. We're out. And they just completely ignore the bulls. And they're like, we're down the timber. We're going after the big bull again. And just after all that displaying, all that showcasing and displaying by the bulls, we don't care. We're out. We don't want you. So yeah, I absolutely, if a bull is going to pester them, no, they don't rank high on the attraction list.
But you do feel like a 2-year-old bull, a small 5-point that just kind of hangs around, he can breed cows, right?
Technically they can. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I will say this. In my opinion, I think we're really kind of talking about a 3-year-old that's probably going to do the breeding. And for two reasons. One, the big one is, well, one, obviously the older age class animal, I mean, he's probably going to act a little different than the 2.5-year-old one. However, probably the biggest key is you can actually have 2.5-year-old bulls still hanging around the same cow-calf groups that they were born into and raised. And so a cow will not breed with her offspring. I mean, they know, and this is another rabbit hole we can go down. This is pretty cool. This was kind of a parallel deal that I worked with a professor when I was doing the elk study. There's strong anecdotal evidence to suggest, and I've witnessed it. I have witnessed 1.5-year-old bulls, and I have witnessed 2-year-old bulls nursing on a cow in the middle of July. And the theory is that bull is her offspring. And she will continue to nurse that bull on it, just incidentally, just because it's in her best interest to make sure that bull, survives, apparently. Now, it's almost impossible to verify it, and researchers have never been able to verify it without doing serious genetic testing, which cost would be astronomical. But the relevant point with all that is a 2.5-year-old bull very well might be still mixed in with his mother, his grandmother, his sisters, to where they're not going to breed him. They're not going to breed with him. Now, after that, that's where you start.
You think they know?
Oh, absolutely they do. Absolutely they do. I mean, it's the exact same way and again, the video that I'm sharing now from this past trip just to Colorado, there was so much good stuff to it. You can watch a cow searching a group of calves and calling, and all of a sudden a calf comes at a trot, comes to her. You're like, oh, well, she just called her calf, and the calf is coming. The calf comes smoking in, and that cow's like, oh, go ahead and nurse, and while you're coming in, I'm going to sniff you. Wait, who the hell are you? Nope, and kicks him out. Nope. So visually, they did not confirm that calf was theirs. It wasn't until they put their nose to it and smelled it and were like, no, you're not mine. And then they kicked the calf out. So there's a scent factor there that is a strong, and the same thing with cows with calves, but I think same thing holds over into their offspring bulls. They can smell them and they know. They can smell them. You're mine. You're mine. And so I'm not going to breed with you. Get out. And that's usually, 1.5-year-old bulls, you can say, well, they get kicked out of the group. Nah, they get pushed to the fringe edges, but those bulls still stay with that group. It's not until you start hitting that 2.5-year-old range and then 3.5 to where you see bulls just pick up and go, you know what? I'm out. Time to make my own way. I'm leaving. And they just go. And they may go for miles. Just a curious piece of information. Northwest Colorado is known for its trophy bulls. The state of Colorado manages the northwest part of the state for trophy quality. High bull to cow ratios, older age class. Well, for years when they first started it, they were getting frustrated that they were not seeing the bulls that they were producing in that area staying there and getting maturity. So they actually collared a bunch of them and put GPS collars and radio collars on them just to see what was going on. They literally at 2.5 to 3.5 and 4.5 year old, that once they hit that age class, there were bulls that were going from Browns Canyon and the National Monument up there all the way to Laramie, Wyoming, just picking
Wow.
up and going hundreds of miles and just dispersing, going, bye, see you, we're out. So it's not until you hit that 2.5 to maybe into 3.5 year old range where you start having those bulls wander away from their maternal group that they were born into. So in that case, if you got a 2.5 year old bull, year and a half or 2.5 year old bull, yeah, he can breed technically, but I think most likely he's not going to, because he's probably going to be in with some sisters and female relatives. It's not until you get those 3-year-olds, I think, you start doing the breeding.
Great stuff. That was a great little bunny trail. Let's take another quick break here and then dive back into the
All
clip.
right.
PhoneScope is a company that makes custom-molded, precisely engineered smartphone digiscoping adapters. Photographing wildlife has never been easier. It is simple to text photos and videos from your smartphone and share them with your friends. PhoneScope stands behind their product with a 100% money-back guarantee. Get yours now by using the JScott16 promo code and receive 10% discount on all purchases. Check them out at PhoneScope. That's PhoneSkope.com, or on Instagram at PhoneScope.
Okay, Chris, let's play some more of this clip.
All right, let me hit play, and then I'll stop it right after the money shot. What everybody what everybody loves to hear and talk about. Hold on. All right, now during these dead moments like this, they're just feeding and just kind of relaxed and just kind of wandering and walking, and they're just kind of moving down along parallel to this road. All right,
That was a bull. That was a bull bugling.
Yeah, no, there's not a bull to be had anywhere around here. No, that was the cool thing. People talk all the time about cow bugles and are curious about cow bugles just because they're just they're relatively rare. I'm not going to say they don't ever happen, because they do, but it's just not something you normally hear. So let me bounce it back. We'll play it again, and let's. I know you've got some questions, so let me play it again. You've got to kind of listen through the vehicle traffic, but here you go. That's just perfect. That's perfect.
That's a 4-point bull bugling right there.
And a lot of people would say, "Oh yeah, I finally got a bull to respond." Or you'll hear people say, And now I will qualify this next statement in the fact that yes, bulls will bugle throughout the summer as well. They'll bugle year round. They just don't usually pour the coals to it, until the rut really kicks in. So yes, you can hear some bulls bugle, and they might sound just like this up in the high country in their bachelor groups, but most of the time, people are up in the high country camping or watching elk or watching mule deer or whatever, and they hear something like, "Holy cow, a bull just bugled down below me." Well, was it a bull or was it a cow? So, that's the cool thing about this one too. Is again, people, you hear it, and sometimes you're not paying attention. You might have a whole bunch of cows in front of you, and all of a sudden you hear a bugle, and you're like, "What?" And you weren't even paying attention to the girl that said it. Or you'll hear people talk about, "Oh, here's a cow bugle. Here's what it means," or "What does it mean?" But again, without having video and being able to see the entire context, it's very difficult to tease out. Is it something that's even important? So in this case, and the other thing too, for people to understand, I did take out some dead sections in here, so it is truncated. This is a 5-minute. I've put together 5 minutes of literally almost 30 minutes of activity that was in and around me. So I didn't. These aren't stacked on top of one another per se, but I did take out a few dead spots. But in this case, there was very little dead spot between the first clip and this. She comes out, she's calling. You hear that again, what people talk about, an estrus mew or estrus scream, whatever, the selfish mew, whatever you want to call that. She starts vocalizing that way. She gives an assembly mew. Nothing happens. She starts walking. You can hear. This is when, again, here's this frustration starts coming in. You can see her body language. You hear, those frustrated whines start coming in, and she stops, she turns, she looks back into the timber, back behind her, and she just rips it. So it just, again, it's one of those vocalizations you don't hear often, a lot of times, but it happens.
I wonder how many times I've actually heard that and thought it was just a 2-year-old bull or spike, or because I've heard spikes bugling, and
Yep.
but I've never heard a cow bugle that I know of. And when I saw this clip on the that's going on the elk module, I'm just like, no way, that cow just bugled. Pretty dang cool. In your mind, how does that help a hunter knowing that cows actually make those sounds? And would you incorporate that into your strategy, into your calling of a bull?
That's a situation I would put the cow bugle right there squarely in the wheelhouse of that selfish mew, or what people call that estrus mew, estrus scream. It is, you're talking about the ultimate level of frustration, and she is desperate to find someone. So, and most of the time, and I'll bet you any money, if you start going back through and thinking about all the times that you may have heard it, it was probably in a situation where you had multiple elk. You probably had a situation where there was a lot of stuff going on, and there was animals strung out across a large distance, okay? So if I'm in those situations and I'm doing whatever, and Jay, you know it best, I mean, in the situations that you've been in, and even some of the stuff that, even our first episode, there's some times where you get in these larger herds and it's just absolute, utter chaos that
Yeah.
you've got to do something to stand out. I take that back. If the cover's good in those situations, keep your mouth shut and just slip in and get in position. Who your previous guest there, one that killed 50 bulls in less than 50.
Michael Park.
Michael Park. He said it best. He's like, just slip in there and kill him. Just, again, calling is a tool just to help you fill a tag. It's not that I like calling, but you don't have to call in order to kill an elk. So if you're in those situations and you can move in and just slip in and go, do it. But if you're in a situation where they're going to skirt you and they're going to be outside of your range, and you need to do something to try to pull some of those animals to you, that is where I start building the intensity in my calling. I start adding those frustrated whines, those aggravated whines. I will throw in those selfish mews, and I will hammer them. And if I need to, heck yes, I'll throw in a cow bugle. It can't hurt. But the big thing with this is, and if you listen to her, let me just play it again. Listen to the structure of it. Listen to how clean and fluty it is. All right? If you want to do a cow bugle, this is where mouth diaphragm is where it's going to be at. And typically you're going to be using a mouth diaphragm that allows you to do good cow calls. And then the other part is you're going to want to run it through a tube, yep. And do not add any growl to it at all. If anything, at the end of it, do exactly what she did and just add that breathy to it. But yeah, absolutely. You've got to run it through a bugle tube, but that's just sexy. She's just awesome. and that's the beautiful part about it is that we haven't even gotten into the rest of it. And
let's roll into it.
All right. She's standing there, staring back into the timber,
and someone's taking a picture of her right now.
Okay, let me pause it real quick. Just give you some context. You get again. You guys can watch it on my website there, the elk module. But right now, she's looking back in the timber. She's trying to see who's following her. I pan back. No, whatever's coming in the timber, that's not who I'm looking for. So she whips around, and her and the other cow and calf that are following her, they look back. They're looking across the road now, and this is where she's like, "Wait a minute, who the heck is across the road behind me?"
Guys, I want to thank you for listening to episode number 177, the part one excited cow calling of the Real Elk Sounds series. Make sure to catch episode number 178, which is going to be part two of this excited cow calling series. So thanks for listening, guys.